Or earlier, I was thanking Alicia Bird Clark for going up to Guilford County and stealing one of their best people for he's grinning here. Dr. Tony Watlington, comes to us as superintendent of schools here in Rowan-Salisbury, and Alicia Bird Clark is on the Board of Education, and we're so glad that connection was made. He apparently got his reputation by just plain improving excellence and equity and the systems that are to promote that in Guilford County. He served as principals at 3 different levels, so we know something about what goes on in the administration of local schools. He's been a history teacher himself. Thank God he knows history, which is extremely important to knowing and understanding education here. He's got degrees all over the place. As impressive as you want to get, father, educator, administrator, leader, I present to you Dr. Tony Watlington, who is the superintendent of schools for Rowan-Salisbury. There he is. Take it away. Whatever's on your mind, tell us about.
Well, good morning, Mr. Hoy, and many thanks to you. Thank you for that very kind introduction. And I want to thank you and the Rowan Democratic Party for this opportunity to speak with you this morning. With your permission, I'd like to just share for about 20 minutes. I'll be happy to answer any questions or react to anything you guys want to share. I'm going to share my screen, and while I'm doing that, I just want to thank our Board of Education, particularly Vice Chairwoman Bird Clark. Glad to see she's here this morning and doing great work on behalf of the 18,000 children and their families in the Rowan-Salisbury schools. I think I also see some members of the Rowan-Salisbury Association of Educators here today as well. And so that's very good to see. Does my screen show up okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I would like to just take about 15 or 20 minutes to share an update, a little bit about me, but mostly about an update on where we are in the Rowan-Salisbury School District. And I hope that this information will be helpful to you as the local Democratic Party thinks about your party platform and how to be advocates for our 18,000 plus students and their families, so that we can truly do what we say every day, try our very best to provide them with an extraordinary education. This summer, we took 203 teacher leaders, all the principals, and a lot of the central office staff on a retreat out in the mountains. And we got a chance to really dig into a key question: how are the children? We didn't start by just looking at policy procedures, but just want to reflect on how are the children. I love that question because the Maasai tribe in East Africa uses that question as a greeting every time they meet. How are the children? And the expectation is always that all the children are well. So we're trying to work really hard so that we can ensure that all the children are indeed well. A little bit about me, I won't share much, but I came from Guilford County. I'm a divorced single dad of 3 great young men, 2 of who are grown and one who's quite not. And I'm very proud of these young men, and we're all somewhat of runners. So next time we have that 5K run down in China Grove, you'll probably see us in it. Why do I do this work? Why did I want to be superintendent in Rowan-Salisbury schools? I believe that education really is, or at least can be, a great equalizer. I was a free and reduced lunch kid. I didn't necessarily think of myself as poor, but by all definitions, I was. I know 2/3 of our kids are students in poverty. I know that we can help people rise above their circumstances. My father was in the U.S. Army and spent 24 years in the Army, came back from the Vietnam War with PTSD. Needless to say, it had a pretty negative impact on my family in terms of my parents divorcing at some point. But we had families and we had school folks who invested in me. And so I know firsthand the power of having systems that can support and help children to go anywhere that they want to go. I also know that it's real easy to say, just go out and do it, but sometimes we have to disrupt systems and structures that do just the opposite. So my approach to leadership is not to say what's wrong with families, what's wrong with the student. It's about how do we look at the system and structures? How do we look at what's happening outside of the school district and how it influences what happens in classrooms every day, so that we can work together with parents, community, teachers, etc., to do our very best and not think that teachers can do all this work by themselves, because they absolutely cannot. So that's a little bit about my why. Part of my philosophy, I've tried in the 8 months I've been here, I've been focused on being visible, transparent, student-centered, data-driven, and equity-focused, and I'm naturally collaborative and results-oriented. To me, what equity means in a school district, in a social system, in a community, in a nation is this: the pursuit is equity. The pursuit of equity means that we really work really hard and strategically to figure out how to develop systems so that we cannot predict outcomes based on race, class, or socioeconomic status or gender. So that means in an ideal scenario, you can't predict which kids will work really well and which kids will not do very well in school. You can't predict who will be suspended out of school more than other kids. You can't predict any negative outcomes or positive outcomes based on race. I was interested in coming here because of this whole renewal business here in Rowan-Salisbury. As you know, in June of 2018, this became, out of 115 school districts, it's fascinating to me, absolutely fascinating. This is the only school district in the state of North Carolina that has the renewal status, which means we're a huge district charter school. We have flexibilities that no other school district have has in this state. And so this is just a quick timeline. As you know, in January, early January, Dr. Lynn Moody retired, and I stepped in as her replacement. And I'm absolutely committed to building on the good work that Dr. Moody and Ms. Bird Clark and the board had begun in this renewal journey 3 years ago. And I want to give you a little bit of update today on where we are in that journey. Really quickly, a lot of people I've noticed have different understandings of what renewal actually is. At its core, we have maximum flexibility from the state rules and guidelines in the area of curriculum, budget, personnel, and calendar. And we're continuing to think about how do we further develop those flexibilities so that we can provide extraordinary education for our students, close or narrow the gaps between our highest performing students and our lowest performing students. In a nutshell, that's what we want to do. Now, as you may very well know, we have a renewal directional system that was developed 3 years ago that essentially has 3 buckets. We're focusing on academic skills, reading, writing, arithmetic, as we used to say in the old days. Also focusing on unique life goals, helping to connect kids to what they want to do in the future by as early as elementary schools, kind of recognizing what they're passionate about and helping them to develop those passions. And we're focused on interpersonal skills to make sure that we dig into their ability to communicate, solve problems, work as a group, all the things that great employers want from folks to be able to do as a basic standard. And at the very center of this is engaged learners. And teachers were very much highly involved in developing this renewal directional system. I'm going to show you about 10 slides pretty quickly, and it's just what the data say for our school district. After getting here, I asked our director of accountability to take a look across the state, and let's look at the 9 or 10 school districts that are most like Rowan County, either in terms of size, demographics, how they're situated, etc. So the 9 other districts that we decided we would begin to benchmark our school district against are Alamance Burlington Schools, Brunswick County, Cabarrus County, even though Cabarrus is a much wealthier county than Rowan, Davidson County, where the median income is about the same, just a slightly higher in Davidson than Rowan, Gaston County Schools, Harnett County Schools, Iredell Statesville, Moore County Schools, New Hanover County Schools down in Wilmington, and of course, we wanted to benchmark against the state. The dotted blue line shows the state graduation rates over the past 5 years before the pandemic. The red line shows Rowan-Salisbury schools. What you'll take away from this slide is relative to the state, we were well below the state graduation rate average. And over the past 5 years, we've gone above the state average, and we've improved at a faster rate than many of our benchmark districts. That is a very positive thing for Rowan-Salisbury schools. At the same time, we know that you can improve your graduation rate if you let kids drop out of school. This district has not done that. In fact, you'll look at that red line, Rowan-Salisbury schools among our benchmark districts has one of the best reductions in the dropout rate over the past 5 years. And we can continue to get much lower relative to the state average with dropouts. Another point of pride in Rowan-Salisbury, again, look at the red line compared to the other districts. This shows our graduates who graduate with a career and technology, CTE, career technical education concentration, which means they took 2 or 3 classes in a specific CTE pathway. Not only has this district done good work there, but out of 115 school districts in the state, we rank number 4 in terms of CTE concentrators. If we extend this work and really take it to the next level, we will be, it should be a driver for how do we attract jobs and get kids connected to jobs that come to Rowan County, good paying jobs. Another thing that is kind of interesting in our data over the past 10 years, this slide just shows that our enrollment has been declining over multiple years. This year, we started the year, so in 2010-11, we had over 20,000 students. Last year, that number was at 18,300. This year, we started the year on the 20th day of school, right at 18,000. I think we're like 18,010 or so students. So something that we have to pay attention to. Most people may not know this, but enrollment in public schools and public traditional schools in North Carolina is declining. The decline in Rowan-Salisbury is a bit steeper than the decline for the state as a whole. If we look at the percent of schools that meet the state's definition of growth, which means students in our schools made at least a year's worth of growth in their learning, it's something that we have to pay attention to. In 2016-17, 31% of our schools did not meet growth. In 2017-18, that number crept up to 47. And in 2018-19, that number was 50%. So we are developing a strategic plan now, and part of that strategic plan goal will be that 100% of our schools will meet growth, a year's worth of growth. It is an entirely attainable goal, and we're excited about that. If you look at end of grade and end of course test proficiency, this slide shows you that there is a gap between where we are and other districts. Some of these districts are much wealthier than Rowan-Salisbury. Some are not. And so part of what we want to do with renewal is really focus in on growth and the renewal directional system. And we also want to improve performance as measured by test scores. We also, when you look at our groups of students over the past 5 years, you will see that our white students are our highest performing students, and with this white line at the top. Then you'll see that Hispanic students are represented in the green line. Economically disadvantaged students, or students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, are in the blue line. The light purple or lavender line shows Black students. And then our English language learner students, students who English is not their first language, are represented in the burgundy line there. And then students with disabilities or special education students are represented in the yellow line. We want to elevate performance for all of our students, and we want to reduce the gap between our highest performing and lowest performing students. One other thing that I want to note is that in 2014-15, we had 19 state identified low performing schools. This school district did some phenomenal work from 14-15 to 15-16 to decrease that number. We have to pay attention to this because the past couple of years, those numbers have ticked up a bit. This is why this is important. Number one, the renewal legislation in 2018 said that if at any time our school district has a majority of our schools in low performing status, that would constitute the grounds to lose our renewal status. So we certainly don't want that to happen. I disagree with the way the state identifies low performing schools. And recently I had an opportunity to speak with the State Board of Education about this. Low performing schools are based on 80% of that designation is based on one test. 20% is based on growth. I think that we should equally weight the factors, 50% growth, 50% based on one test. And here's the reason why. If Tony Watlington comes to kindergarten, and I'm reading at a level here, and Jeffrey Hoy comes to kindergarten and he's reading 3 grade levels above where I am reading, maybe he has more books in his home, maybe he takes field trips and I don't, whatever, maybe he had some good pre-K, his parents read to him, I don't have books in my home. If both of us improve and grow that school year, but there's still a gap, but I don't quite meet the grade level proficiency on the test, we don't tell the public the real story that Tony and Jeffrey both grew. Tony just didn't catch up enough to show a proficiency score. So if you make it 50% growth and 50% proficiency, that would really, I think, tell a little bit different story. Either way, I absolutely believe that all of our young people are smart, and we have to figure out ways to help them demonstrate how smart they are, no matter what kind of assessment they take. So here's a quick summary of where we are as a school district. And I list this as glows and grows. Our glows are, we have really deep teacher level buy-in for renewal. As I go into all 33 schools, there's strong support. Every school has their own renewal plan. Teachers are energized and don't feel like someone came in and said, this is what teachers will do, but took the time to bring teachers around the table That is so important because the research says in this country from 50 years of research, it says this: the single most important ingredient to students growing academically in school is the quality of the classroom teacher. It's not even income. Although income has is a huge influencer, but the quality of the teacher and the importance of the teacher is so key. Principals are second in the research. High quality principals are second. Now, I guess you could move them to first if you say, well, high quality principals hire and support high quality teachers. We should be proud that we have a graduation rate increase, a dropout rate decrease, and our CTE industry credentials earned. Here's what our grows are and what our next steps that we absolutely have to do in Rowan-Salisbury schools. First, we must further develop the renewal flexibilities with our new local accountability model in a way that educates the whole child. On the one hand, we can't be the district that says we don't care about testing, because when you're not in first, second, or third place, but if our kids are performing at the lower end compared to other districts, we can't just say there's a problem with the test. We have to figure out how to elevate all of our kids so that they demonstrate that learning on tests, because the tests are not going to go away. Second, we want to focus in on how we increase the number of schools that meet growth and decrease the number of low performing schools. Low performing schools have a huge impact on a community. Once I was so proud that in the past few years, we had one school to exit low performing status, and that was Eisenberg Elementary School. It's so important because when a school is state identified low performing year after year, realtors don't show homes in some communities that have low performing schools. Parents don't necessarily say, I want to buy a home in a school zone with a low performing school. Grocery stores don't move in. Then you have more food deserts, and it's just this cyclical pattern. We've also tried to focus in on what are the state practices and state mandates that help contribute to this as well. So we're really focused on that with our strategic plan work. Another next step for us is how do we take our CTE concentrators and then make sure that kids get connected to these high-tech jobs that are coming to North Carolina. And if we feel like if we do a good job over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years preparing children for jobs that can come to Rowan County, it will have a good impact on our local economy. And then another next step for us is to really dig in with our strategic planning process to figure out specific strategies to increase our parent and community partnerships, understanding and support for renewal. Parents are our children's first teachers, and we don't ever want to approach education as if we can do this work alone by ourselves. We want to work together with our parent communities. With that, I want to go to the very last slide and just say thank you very much for letting me speak with you today. I want to just say, in terms of our vision, we want to develop the whole child to ensure that we reduce low performing schools, increase growth. But at the end of the day, we really want to make sure that we provide an extraordinary education and create life-changing opportunities for all of our children. And we want to close those gaps in performance so that we can showcase the learning and smartness for all our children. We encourage you to follow us at our hashtag on Twitter or the Rowan-Salisbury Schools website. We hope to bring a strategic plan forward in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And we're excited that we have lots of people in our community who are part of the steering committee for that strategic plan. That strategic plan will be our roadmap for how we're going to do some spectacular, extraordinary work together over the next 5 to 7 years and beyond. And I thank you again for allowing me to be here this morning. And we appreciate the support of the Democratic Party. And we hope that you will advocate for policies that invest in and support public traditional schools, because that is an issue. And we know that public schools work. It's what made the middle class in this country. It's what made our country a superpower, and we cannot retreat from a support of America's public schools. So with that, I say thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you very, very much, Tony. It's really great to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. This is the kind of stuff we cheer on and celebrate and advocate for and run candidates to try to get, and question those candidates who, when elected, don't support these kinds of things. So thank you for being such a strong advocate for what is needed. You know, boots on the ground, you know what's needed, and teachers certainly do too. And our local renewal district provides opportunity for that. If you have questions, can you raise your hand in, okay, does somebody have a hand up? I see Mary James. Go ahead, Mary. Unmute.
Please, I need them to use the reactions to raise their hand.
Oh, okay. You use the raise hand thing on your go to reaction on your information thing at the bottom of your screen, and hit raise hand there. Ken needs that.
Michael, you're unmuted.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Michael Stringer, and I would just like to ask you, in the CTE program, as I understand it, how do we ensure that the technology that we're training or educating our children or allowing them to participate in is going to continue to focus on future efforts? For example, I would pick in the 1900s, if you trained or brought up your child or educated your child to be a blacksmith, then specifically for shoeing horses and the care of horses, well, by 1900, he's out of a job, because the automobile and technology that wasn't even foreseen at that time has come into play. Also, I would like for when you discuss about specific local jobs, what will happen if, as we know, in the early 1900s, mill work was very important, and children were trained, or not even trained, educated to a certain level, but were allowed just to go into school to go to mill work. How will we prevent that from happening?
Thank you for that question, sir. You're absolutely right. What we want to be preparing kids for are jobs of the future, not jobs in the past. Couple of things that way we do that. We have a director of career technical education. Her name is Dr. Holly Poor, and she's the key administrator in the district who helps us to think about where are the jobs going in the future. Now, there are some jobs that have always produced good paying salaries. You think about folks who are brick masons, you think about folks who are carpenters, you think about folks who have those specific skills, where some of those trades are not going away. The new jobs are moving in advanced manufacturing, coding, artificial intelligence. So we have to constantly retool our school program so that we're looking at the jobs that are going to be here 10, 20 years down the road. For example, I was in a meeting yesterday about when Apple moves that headquarters to the Raleigh-Durham area, it can have a huge impact on jobs beyond just the Raleigh-Durham area. And so we want to make sure that our kids are prepared to be able to do that. And then finally, we have this thing called the Rowan Education Collaborative, where myself and our two college presidents at Livingstone College, Catawba College, and the president at Rowan Cabarrus Community College meet every other Wednesday morning totally talking about these kind of items and issues, and how do we make sure that K-12 students are being prepared to move into the four-year colleges and into the two-year community colleges. Mrs. Puckett just put in the chat, also renewable energy jobs are a huge jobs of the future. And so that means we have to adjust the curriculum in our high schools and middle schools. And we can't just teach the same thing that we may have taught 20 years ago. So we're constantly looking at the research. We're looking at working with the Chamber of Commerce to know what's the forecast for jobs coming down the pike, and so that we can align our curriculum to make sure that we're preparing kids and preparing all groups of kids. We also want to make sure that we're preparing all groups of kids.
I see a question from Anthony Smith, one of our candidates for city council, asking what are ways in which city government could be of assistance to reaching the vision that you're laying out for the school system?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Smith. I will tell you that in the near future, as a part of our new strategic plan, we are going to launch an Office of Parent Engagement, and we're going to launch a Parent Academy. It's going to be staffed with a full-time administrator. We're going to use some of the federal money that's coming to the school district, the COVID relief money, and we're going to invest in that Parent Academy. We're going to do programming for parents. We're going to go out and meet parents, all of our diverse parents, wherever they are. We would love to be able to partner with the city of Salisbury, other municipalities, public and private institutions, to have some structured partnerships around some key areas. One area will be literacy. I know that the city of Salisbury and Rowan Reads and some other groups in our community had begun to talk about some strategies before the pandemic hit. There's a national group called the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. They go into communities and help communities figure out, how do you connect school districts with local governments, with the United Way, so that you get lots of different groups of agencies working on the same work together and not doing things in silos. So the biggest thing I could say is to be able to sit down at the table once the strategic plan is completed with the city of Salisbury and specifically identify how we can work together to improve literacy, to provide housing opportunities for teachers who want to move to the city of Salisbury. Those are two key areas, and there are many more, but I think the key is to be able to be partners at the table so we have a structured way of communicating and working together.
Okay, so thank you. Can we unmute Mary James? She's got a couple of questions.
Oh, okay. Dr. Watlington, gosh, that was so informative. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, I'm curious why you think enrollment has declined so precipitously. I mean, the latest census shows our population has increased somewhat. I don't know whether it's people moving in who don't have kids, whether more people are homeschooling, whether these opportunity scholarships are stealing our kids into private schools. How do you look at that? And once you answered that, my second question, I was curious what the state board reaction was to your suggestion about how to evaluate low performing schools.
Sure, I'll take the first question first about enrollment. I'll tell you what our trends show and then what my personal opinion is, since I don't know for sure. Our greatest decline in enrollment has been white students. The greatest increase in enrollment has been Hispanic students. 70% of Rowan County has been 70% Caucasian for the past 10 years. It's interesting, 12, 13 years ago, the school district demographics pretty much lined up with the county demographics. Over the years, though, as the white enrollment has declined, that's been the biggest decline in enrollment in the school district. We intend to survey and talk with parents to get their feedback about why those white parents who left this public school district left. So I can't speak for them. I can tell you that Rowan County has one of the highest homeschool populations among school districts in the state. So homeschool parents are going to be some of the parents that we in particularly want to go out and survey and ask their thoughts. Now, why that's happening, I can't say for sure. I can tell you that nationally, the enrollment of white families is declining, and in the state of North Carolina, the same is true. Now, you do lose some students, families of color, but the lion's share, the majority tend to be white families. One thing I think may contribute, I'll just share one statistic. When the National Gallup poll asks parents, what do you think about public schools? Generally, the feedback is low. The ratings are low. But when you ask the same parents, what do you think about your child's teacher, the quality of your child's teacher, the numbers go much higher. So part of it is there is some attack on public education in this country. There's no question about it. Two, I think sometimes the bad news gets out and the good news does not get out as much. And so beyond that, I think that we have to really go out and talk to our communities and find out what are the reasons for that loss. And so I just know that I think part of it is public schools have to really invest in communications. In Rowan County, most of our taxpayers do not have school-aged children, and the same is true across the country. So school districts now have to change, and we've got to change quickly. We've got to know how to talk to people who don't have kids in public schools, but who decide the tax structures that fund public schools. So it's sometimes easier to talk with parents because they get newsletters, they meet with their child's teachers. But what about the other folks in the community who don't have school-aged children, who don't know our story, and all they know about public schools is what they may have seen about one issue that occurred in a school that was not positive. But if they don't know all the other positive good stuff going on, perhaps that might be something that contributes to that. So, but we'll look forward to really surveying lots of parents across the county to find out, one, why did you leave? Or if you've never been enrolled, what made you choose to homeschool or to go to the one charter school versus the traditional public schools? Because I'd like to know that. If there's something we need to do better, we need to do it, because we can't let the enrollment continue to go down. Your second question was, how did the State Board of Education respond? They were thought it was very favorable that the graduation rate is up and the dropout rate is down. They would like to study what we're doing in CTE and what kind of progress we make over the next few years. They're curious to know how our school district over the next 5 years will take the flexibilities that we have and nobody else has to improve literacy performance, in particular for all student groups. And so it's clear that the state board has decided they want to really watch what happens in Rowan-Salisbury because it can be a model for the state.
I'd like to follow up on that. I know a couple years ago, the state budget included funding to have a study of Rowan-Salisbury School District because of its renewal status. Now, that study, as I understand it, never took place because of the budget impasse over expanding Medicaid. Now, I'm wondering, you gave the report to the State Board of Education, but the kind of report that you would give or could be given from a study of Rowan-Salisbury school districts needs to get into the state legislature, because those are the guys and they are mostly men, and many of them don't have children in schools, and they don't visit the schools. And we know that because we have some of those representatives here. What is the relationship to the state legislature regarding the kind of study and data that you can present?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question. Governor Cooper actually visited Knox Middle School a few months ago, and I asked the governor that very question. And Governor Cooper told me, and I went and checked this out, and it's so. In his proposed budget is $300,000 seed money to study Rowan-Salisbury schools. Now, the state budget, as we know, has not been adopted, but certainly that's one of the things that we will want our legislators to push to make sure that the governor's recommendation of allocating $300,000 to study Rowan-Salisbury schools over time be approved. The thinking is that pending that funding, the Friday Institute for Educational Innovation at North Carolina State University will likely do a lot of the work of that study. So that is something that we are talking with our legislators. I had a chance to meet with Senator Ford earlier this year. I think this is so important that it should not be a political partisan issue. Either we're for public education, either we're going to support public schools to get better, or we're just going to defund and we're going to push, or we're not. I'll just stop there.
Thank you. And thank you for pointing out that Governor Cooper does have that item in what he is proposing, because it's just so vital. I mean, otherwise they're flying blind and cutting money and not being helpful. Do we have other questions? Raise your hand in the reaction thing so that Ken can find you. And
Al had her hand up first. Let me unmute her.
Al Higgins, on City Council and candidate for mayor.
Yes. Hey, good morning. Dr. Watlington, I just want to say thank you for bringing your brilliance to Rowan County. I had the opportunity, of course, to work with you over in Guilford County on many initiatives, and I just appreciated learning from you and working with you. So just thanks for being here. And I thank you and Alicia for your courageous work around protecting our students and our staff. Your work has been tremendous, and just thank you for that. What is the best way that we can continue to support you in keeping our students and our faculty and our staff safe without making it a political issue?
I think that certainly I want to commend. I think we took some good steps under the leadership of the board, and I know Vice Chair Byrd Clark was made a motion and really led the charge for us to ensure that we mask in schools. And so the extent to which the city and every other municipality can encourage us to consider masking, and I think I read that you're doing some incentives to encourage your employees to get vaccinated. After Vice Chair Byrd Clark made the motion to mask and we moved in that direction, the number of quarantines in our school district went down from well over 3,000. We've cut it in half just in that relatively short amount of time. And so I'm really concerned that some of our mitigation strategies have become such a partisan issue that as a school superintendent, we're doing the very best we can to meet the needs of kids and to make sure that we can be in school 5 days a week. Because if we're in and out of school all the time, the taxpayers are not getting a return on their investment because we're running buses with small numbers of kids in school. So I think everything we can do to continue to encourage community to slow the spread of the the variant so that we can stay in school 5 days a week by masking if people deem that appropriate, and to get vaccinated if they deem it to be appropriate.
Okay, I think Alicia had something to say. Vice
I do.
Chairperson Byrd Clark of the school board.
Thank you, Jeffrey. First of all, I just want to commend Dr. Watlington on such a stellar presentation. Thank you for being with us this morning and to presenting the information that you have. So he basically just touched on what I had my hand raised for. Not only have our student quarantine and positive cases decreased, so has our staff. And so, you know, we're still in this fight about whether or not to keep masks being mandated for the remainder of the year and different things of that sort. So hopefully when we meet on Monday, our board will see that mandating masks is working, and hopefully that it will continue to work so that we can keep our kids in school and keep them safe and healthy, as well as our entire district.
So thank you, Alicia. You know, just one other comment, as I saw in the report in the newspaper of your presentation to you know, the State Board of Education, there was reference from the State Superintendent of Schools asking whether or not you were proceeding with introducing the program Science of Reading training, and seems to me like that was kind of a red flag she was waving. In a presentation that we had from Dr. Jen Mangrum, I think 2 months ago, she made very clear that that program had some real questions about its validity. And I was wondering where you stand in terms of reading programs in the district regarding that, Dr. Watlington.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that question as well. Superintendent Truitt asked me, where is the Rowan-Salisbury schools position to implement the Science of Reading professional development that all school districts will do in North Carolina. Our district is scheduled in the third wave of school districts to begin that training. Essentially what the Science of Reading training attempts to do is look at 50 years of research, not go off of our gut or what a teacher might like to teach, but study the research about what has worked in this country for the past 50 years to help different groups of kids to improve their literacy skills. And essentially, the Science of Reading kind of attempts to bring all that research together and moves probably more from a whole language. You know, there's, you know, historically it's been either focused on whole language or phonics, but finding the balance there and what specific strategies will help to do that. The Science of Reading and Letters training, which kind of accompanies that, has shown some real promising data in the state of Mississippi. Is there a silver bullet anywhere? No, but I do think I'm looking forward to the opportunity for us to dig into the science of reading, because it is based on scientific study of what has happened in this country over 50 years and what has shown, according to the trends, to work or not work. Here's the other side of the issue that we don't talk about. Basically, we have a national emergency in the United States of America, and we don't want to talk about it. More of a threat to us than Afghanistan, North Korea, or Iran is in the public and private universities. The number of people going into education is doing this. So when we cut pay for teachers to get national board certification, which the research says is associated with improved student outcomes, when we cut teachers from being able to receive pay for getting a master's or another advanced degree, when we don't invest in teacher salaries And we don't make teaching the most attractive profession for smart young people to say, yes, I'm raising my hand because I want to be a teacher and I'm proud of it. If the numbers keep going down, it doesn't matter what curriculum you use. If we hire teachers and they come and stay for 2 years, and every 2 years we're recycling teachers in and out of buildings, we never can get a real synergy. So we really have to invest in teachers. We have to value teachers and school leaders, and we have to pay them. If we believe in American capitalism, and we say we do, and I hear people say all the time, I don't believe in socialism, then follow the free market when it comes to the public schools, and let's pay our most prized possession in schools, teachers, according to the good work that they can do. It's not my opinion. If you go look at the data, the numbers in the public university system is going down. The number in the private colleges is going down. And the state even cut the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Program. You can only do that if it makes you wonder, well, what is the real end game here? Now, luckily, the Teaching Fellows Program got reinstated, but I only say that to say it's a combination of science of reading training. I think it's going to be a good thing for us. I'm looking forward to it. At the same time, we've got to really invest in teachers and school leaders so that we don't have so much turnover, and so that we have more people going into the field. When I became a teacher in 1994, I couldn't find a teaching job. It was hard to get a job as a history teacher. There was just little turnover. You had to wait for somebody to retire, and you just get in line and wait. We've got teaching vacancies in Rowan-Salisbury. Every school district in North Carolina started the school year. Almost all the school districts started with vacancies because we couldn't fill them all. It's a national emergency, and we've got to really start talking about that. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see our politicians spend a little bit more time talking about. And what are we going to do to support school districts?
Yeah, I will just add to that, amen. That isn't just preacher talk on my hand. It's amen. Let's do it. Absolutely. We're all in favor of it. And again, we're up to 11:30. Golly, you gave us a whole hour this morning, and we appreciate it very much. And the comments and people have stayed online here. People weren't slipping out the back pew on you. They listened, they learned, and again we say thank you very, very much for what you do and how you do it. And let's stay in touch. If there are things that we can do to be of assistance, let us know, and we'll just keep cheering you on and the work of education here in Rowan County. So again, I say thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you here. Everybody, give him a hand, etc. Okay, everybody. Look forward to being in touch for next month. Thank you.
Bye.